It's Friday. It's pre-recorded. Now the show Dozens Love the 9 Years Podcast.
Well, that song should have put everybody in a good mood. It certainly put me in a great mood when we sat down to record this week's podcast. And then Stu got me talking about stadium finances. And that good mood surely quickly turned into a lot of anger. We've got a lot of things to talk about. So, yes, welcome to the 9 Years Podcast, everybody. Nick Draper here with the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deacons. Again, only one topic of conversation at the moment. We know what that is. This is the third audio show that Stu and I would have done this week discussing the money or lack thereof stadium financing, whatever you want to call it. Mess, I think, is probably the best word. Stu, about 20 years ago, you were on Soccer AM.
I was. How can you remember that?
I will never forget when you did the catwalk with Tim Lovejoy and the Soccerette, whoever she was.
Yeah.
Now, I have a very vivid memory of this, as I'm sure you do.
Yes, I do.
Sat alongside people such as Chris, my brother Chris.
Yes.
Who I think that would have come in the 30-year period in which he had a centre parting.
Looked like he was out of some boy band.
I'm not sure that's the case. Anyway.
That's the look he went for. He just didn't put it off.
I'm not going to say anything, actually, because I have so many things I want to say. I'll spare Chris some abuse on this occasion, especially as we are coming up to Bolton away and all the jokes that reminds us of. Mikey T, I think, was there, was he? Paul Raymond was there, Charlie Talbot.
Yes.
Darren Foreman was in there.
Yeah, good group.
Helen Chamberlain introduced you. I will never forget these words because that was in the year 2000 and we were a couple of months away from being relegated from the Premier League. And she introduced you as the Fans of the Week as this could be the end of a dream. Now, I and the podcast have come into a little bit of stick over the past week, being too negative and thinking like it's the end of the world and doomsday and giving up and all this business. Because I must admit, Stu, I think myself more than you, in fairness, I've been pretty down. I've been tweeting along those lines as well. I'm totally deflated by the whole thing, to be honest with you. And I am struggling to see a way out. We're going to try and be more positive and talk more rationally about things this week. But I really do wonder if people are realising the gravity of this situation in terms of the future. Because we have no money. There's no other way to... How else do you frame this? How else do you get around that fact? And this isn't, we don't have enough money for a stadium. This is having huge knock-on effects on every area of the club, which, don't forget, behind the scenes is already run on a shoestring. We have got no cash. If we do not get external investment, be it by a sale of voting shares in individual shareholders alongside of selling some of the Don's Trust share, if this does not come by some miracle that somebody out there is suddenly going to come up and offer us millions, and we're not talking millions of pounds, we're talking multi-millions of pounds now to not only sort us out with the stadium and keep us as a going concern as a Football League club. If this doesn't happen, we're basically on a slow death. And I know people have said that the stuff that's come out from the Don's Trust and the stuff that's come out from the club is very doomsday scenario and wants to lead us into this line of thinking, and people are saying it's not that bad. It really, really is that bad. We have got no money. I don't know how we put a team together next season if we don't have cash in place to do it. The whole thing is not good. Not good. I don't know what my original point was. I've started to ramble again. This is what happens too. This is what happens when I start rambling. I started off with a point and now I've just gone, yeah.
When you stopped, I was thinking, was there a question that you wanted to ask me on that? No, you're right. It's been that way, isn't it? I think, yeah, you have been quite down with that. Do you know what I have as well? I've just tried to stay away from it. I've been reading a lot on social media. I'm trying to digest. I'm not the cleverest of people sometimes with numbers and stuff like that. I really get, I think I said to you before, I get really bored reading things. This is why I don't read books. So I like the films because they're better. Because I haven't got to read. Maybe it's just lazy.
Hold on. Okay, so this whole sort of selling fan ownership versus maintaining fan-run things is the AFC Wimbledon version of Brexit, leave or remain. However, reading versus not reading is definitely the 9 Years podcast version of Brexit.
What's the film that the guy says, "Show me the money"? I'm trying to think like. That's the sort of film that I think that I need to read. That's the sort of film that it's based on, isn't it? This sort of. It's basically where's the money, and show us it quite quickly. But I think I've been trying to digest. We had the papers on Monday, then we had the club statement on Tuesday, and then we've had this subsequent update, which come out. What day are we now? Thursday. Come out Tuesday, didn't it? From memory.
Friday.
Not our podcast, of course. We know when we record our podcast, but it's the response to the open letter come out on Tuesday. So trying to read through it, and it's just. Again, I've got people, some people are going, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. We're not selling control of the club and this won't happen." And it's like, it's not I want to believe everything that the Don's Trust board are saying, but you have to understand that they are telling you what they feel the situation is. Yes, people will then argue and go, "Yeah, but how can you trust them because they've led us down a garden path?" But ultimately, what they're saying doesn't really look good. I'm reading a lot of things, and I don't know about you. The one thing that really I read through a couple of times was when basically the ones on the basic stadium questions, which just made me just like think, wow. In terms of the cost, the numbers involved are heavy. But then also when they said, can you provide me more details of what the rudimentary? I thought that was some sort of dance act, but anyway, design of the 22 million stadium option would look like. Are
you trying to laugh at your own joke about rudimental?
No, my wife's in the background and she's trying her best not to laugh at my stupidity. Normally she just calls out when she listens to the podcast, because of course I listen back to it because I'm vain like that. But she normally just swears at me basically and says I'm an idiot. But she's probably not far wrong. But it's just. The fact is, 3,260 seats. So if 4,000 seats wasn't bad enough, we've now lost another, 740. But it's just, and again, I don't know whether the Don's Trust have delivered, because let's be fair, we knew originally it was a sales pitch. That Monday paper that come out was basically a sales pitch going, we need investment. But they've surpassed themselves by making it even worse, in terms of the first words are, there's no disguising it won't be pretty. Well, let's be fair, do you know what I mean? We're quite used to a team that's not pretty. We're used to that, and look at our fans in the stands, do you know what I mean? But it's when it says they're removing the semi-permanent stands and associated drainage. Well, we've got Kings Meadow. That smells. What we're going to have at Kings, what's it going to be like at Plough Lane? But it basically also said, covering the external area of the site in a binder layer of tarmac. Fewer lifts. Wow. Reduced boundary walls.
I didn't get that, fewer lifts. How many lifts do we need in a stadium?
I don't know. I'm getting old. You're getting old. So, you might
need a lift. How big is the stand? It wasn't that big.
Well,
Jeez, it's not like Wembley.
But, removing window and door designs from the West Stand. Well, we're going to get cold. So,
well, yeah, there's going to be no heating apparently in this building because there's going to be no ceilings and no flooring and no toilets. Yeah. I don't know what. This is basically the Feltham Arena.
It is. We laughed at Feltham many years ago when we laugh about it now, and actually we still laugh about it now. Then we laughed about it then, we laugh about it now. But we went and thought, it's the first game we've got a roof. Got there and the roof's been burned out, and you're like, well, that's not a roof. It was a roof. So this is what we're like. It is Feltham revisited. It was a roof, but it ain't now because you can't afford to fit it in. It's just. It's so depressing. It really is. And you know what? The biggest thing, if you look at it, only completing the areas that are critical to a football match. Well, we can't score a goal, so there's no point putting another guy at the other end. We're attacking this edge. I mean, Quezzy's not going to be there, so we should be all right. Good luck, Quezzy. Got Christmas off. In these areas, the finish of the walls will be blockwork rather than plastered, and there will be no ceilings or carpet tiles. There'll be no.
I really don't know if you meant to go from insulting Quezzy to talking about block work.
But you know what? No facilities such as bars. We moan that we can't get served at Kings Meadow. You're never going to get served at Plough Lane. No fan zones, no conferencing, banqueting. Do you know what? The bars are a big thing. The fan zones are a big thing. The conferencing and banqueting, does that bother me massively? I don't know whether.
Well, it doesn't bother you or I, does it?
But do we need that?
Well, the thing is, that's the problem. This is the issue, isn't it? Because for me, this is sort of the crux of the matter. Because people are talking about fan ownership and the ceiling of where fan ownership can take us and what have you, and people have said we've hit that ceiling now of fan ownership. I disagree, because I think with the stadium at Plough Lane, which we were thinking of having 9,000 capacity, with all these conference and banqueting facilities, that was our ticket to being sustainable, to be able to maintain League One, potentially with a couple, on a good year getting up into the Championship for a bit. I don't think, realistically, we weren't. Realistically, I don't think we were ever going to be a long-term, what's the phrase they like to use, established Championship level side. But the sustainability factor and being self-financing as a fans-owned club was doable with 9,000 capacity stadium, with conference hospitality, all these other areas. Without those, and this is why I keep saying, we've got nothing. That dream is done, and we could go into this shell of a stadium, but we're going to be doing it as a club. You know what we're going to be? I can't believe I'm going to say this. We're going to be Milton Keynes when they were at the hockey stadium.
You're not wrong.
When they moved in at Championship level, and they just had this slow demise where they had no fans, no money or anything, and they went down into League Two. And they managed to get themselves up from that point, unfortunately, and they didn't plunge into non-league, but that's essentially where we're going to find ourselves. And that is possibly the most depressing thought I've had, and the most depressing thing I've said, and I might as well just kill myself now.
But you know what? If you read underneath, and there's a lot to read, so I get it, but there was one big thing that, again, if it doesn't send... And again, if it's intended to shock, well done, Mark Davis and the Dons Trust Board, you've managed to do that. But, the question, would it meet EFL standards? An answer that I find unbelievable.
I couldn't believe this when I read this.
This is an unbelievable answer. We are investigating this issue. Let's just... So,
man.
So that, if they had never asked that question, they would probably say, we haven't asked that question. They obviously have. And there's obviously social media... and I'm happy to say, Rob, who's obviously resigned from the Dons Trust Board, as if I'm being honest with you, indicated that that's a big chance by what he's saying. I'm not going to quote word for word what he's saying, but if you read it, what he's been putting on the weird, the Whoop guest book, which has been absolutely manic for the last week or so, I'm not surprised that still they're investigating this issue, because it does look like that's a problem. People then have to realise, if we vote, and if they think it's scaremongering, we could lose our membership to the English Football League. So forget about us not having a budget for League One or League Two. We don't need to ask that question, because we're going to go straight out of the league. And then our academy funding goes. And then we're potentially going to go part-time, because where's the money going to come from? Yes, it will come from the fans, because we'll be, we're already paying one of the dearest ticket prices in League One. We certainly were in League Two. We certainly have the most expensive merchandise if you look across, even though I will counter that with, one of my good friends, Matt, who does a club shop. It's got some blinding stuff in the club shop, and now it's really worth going in there. However, in this paper, potentially we could end up having losing jobs, because the actual club shop will not be able to expand. So does that mean it won't be there? Does it mean it's going to be some sort of stall? It's just, I'm like I say, I couldn't stop reading the bit about the basic stadium, and I think that's where my questions are. Is that not true? But it's written in a way that basically says to you, we're fucked.
It's written in a way, like I said to you last week, in that things are being interpreted, but now we've got more information, more and more. This has become very much a binary issue. It is sell. I mean, we've got to get onto the ins and outs of what we've learned about potential investors here, but it's either sell to be able to maintain the stadium and maintain a Football League side, or it's, as you're discussing now, the shell of a stadium and looking at budgets decreasing and falling through divisions and what have you. This is an often quoted thing, and we've all experienced people in our lives that have always said this. Don't come to us with problems, come to us with solutions. Unfortunately, Stu, and people are going to be annoyed at us, I imagine, because we're picking up problems, but we don't. What's the solution to all these things? Because if we don't want to sell out, this is the thing. Like we said, people don't want. There are enough people that do not want to sell to external investments and lose voting powers. The vote that needs to pass and the numbers involved in that just is unrealistic. It's not going to happen. So then we're left with the other option. We need another way. We need something that makes this not a binary option. We need that solution. Have you got anything that's a third way that's going to somehow placate everybody, not alienate half of the fan base either way? There's got to be something. Well, any ideas?
Well, hey, look, I'm reading through.
I've got none, by the way.
No, and I'm not going to be. What's the word? I've seen enough of people who have basically said, "Well, why have we not investigated this? Why have we not investigated that?" And I get that, but it's very difficult to say because at the moment the Don's Trust Board aren't as people are not as confident about the Don's Trust Board at the moment because of the way the information has been. Held on to and then communicated. So then to go back and go, well, I'm sure the Don's Trust Board have looked at your option, this option, this option. The only thing I think, we see a lot where councils own grounds and then, lease back or rent back. To me, it was about us owning our own ground. That was the biggest thing. I know we own Kings Meadow, but it smells and it's in Kingston. But it was about owning our own ground.
But you've just described me.
well, you lived over the corner from it. But it is very much about owning our own ground. However, we know Merton Council. Let's be fair, Merton Council got us a site. It wasn't Gallard Homes wouldn't have got all their stuff that they're building at an unbelievable rate at the moment if it wasn't for a sporting event or structure being there. So it's now really going, well, can Merton Council do anything? Can they help? Can they spend give the extra money? Can they just buy the ground and own it and release it back to us? Or, if they... Because remember, the reason Merton Council wanted us back in there was because actually it's about the community, being part of the community. And the idea of having all... And I know I joked about do we need a hospitality suites, etc. and stuff like that. But actually it is about the community benefiting from that and it just not being a ground that's just used for match day. It needs to benefit the community and actually stand out. And I'm sure Gallard Homes don't really want to have a ground that basically will... Can you imagine? They're flogging their flats for what? In the excess of 250 grand for a one bedroom. Can you imagine what they're going to look like if they've got a stand that's not built, it's cold, it's got, all the wind's going through it, it's tarmacked around the outside. Do you think Gallard Homes are going to be too impressed? And I know it probably will sell without the ground. They've all got a free season ticket if they, if we can't build the other ends, then basically everyone who lives in them flats, you've got a free season ticket for Ryman League football, when we get there.
I was going to say, that's not really much of a prize, is it?
Well, there's some games in the Ryman League. We've been there once.
Wasn't that our worst spell in the non-league? Wasn't it those years in the Ryman League were the hardest and the most horrible?
Yeah, wasn't the Ryman League from memory? That was... So the CCL was more sort of Surrey, wasn't it? And then we went into the Ryman, which then becomes sort of the Essex League and then the Kent League. And,
Essex and Kent, yeah.
Yeah, and then it became the sort of South London League when we got into the Conference South, wasn't it? With sort of Suttons and Bromleys and stuff like that. And people may say, we've done it once, and we sing the song, we won it one time, the CCL, we won it one time. I don't want to have to win it again. No, we don't, because we'll be Waddingford. We won't be able to get promoted because our ground won't fit the criteria. It's just like... We have to be. I get the scaremongering. I get people say, "Look, don't become, don't give in to the scaremongering." But this isn't a scaremongering from back in the day when Haman was in charge and Coppell and that. This is our own Don's Trust Board that we voted in, telling us that we basically need to get investments. It's not someone scaremongering. These are our people that we trusted to be in control of our club. So we have to sort of believe them. And anyone who really thinks that, going back into non-league is an option to keep fan ownership, sorry, but I just don't understand how you think that way.
Well, this is the big thing, isn't it? This is where the big contention is, because there are people that are saying, no, we were formed on this principle. That is the principle of what we are as a fan-owned and fan-run entity, and that's what we should continue. And they prioritise fan ownership above anything else. I think for me, and I am being pragmatic now with my own beliefs, because I don't want us to sell out. I don't. I want us to remain fan-owned, and I want us to make a success of being a fan-owned, fan-run model. I have said over the past few years that I think that the model needs a lot of fine-tuning. I think that's a fair way to put it. But I don't want to abandon it completely. However, we have to be pragmatic. If it comes to the fact that that is the option we need to take to go forward, I think we need to hold it, and people need to remember this doesn't change what's happened over the previous 17 years. If what happens is that a vote is put forward and this is the only way to finance whatever it might be, XYZ, whatever it might be, and we end up selling a majority of voting rights in AFCW PLC, the actual football club itself, that doesn't invalidate everything that's gone before. We don't lose that. We still have the amazing achievement of setting up a football club from absolutely nothing and getting it promoted. Having seen the old Wimbledon FC go from non-league to winning the FA Cup, and then we see in 9 years from zero, from absolutely nothing, into the Football League, going on then to winning at Wembley again. That doesn't disappear. We don't sell that. That will always be ours. And I think people have got to realise that. It doesn't diminish any of the achievements that we've done and made as a fans-owned club. Don't Accrington Stanley, don't they run out onto the pitch under the big barrier, the club that wouldn't die? Like, yeah, I mean, they've passed on to different owners throughout that time, but it was the fans that would let it happen. I mean, no one diminishes what Charlton did when they moved back to the Valley, and look at the amazing achievements they accomplished there when they were homeless at Selhurst Park after many years. Yes, they've had a problem with their owner, but even that, to be honest with you, the whole thing over Charlton when they got back down into League One for a few seasons, now that man's gone, he's out the door, and do you know what? They're in a pretty good place. He's left them in pretty good nick, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he has. And I think where people naturally are worried about bad owners, and, you know, we've seen the bad owners will always get the bad press. You'll never hear about the good owners. And you're right. If you look at Andy Holt, I think it is Andy Holt, isn't it? Or Mr. Holt?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Accrington. Great communication with the fans. Use Twitter. Hey, look, he's better at social media than our club is at social media. But communication with the fans, really understands it. Yes, they're a small club, and they're always going to be a small club, because you know, if you go for Accrington and you basically yawn for about 10 seconds, you'll basically missed it if you're in a car. But it's their community. It's all about the stuff within their community. And then if you look at Darren McAntony, who we've got, you know, some links with, because obviously he wanted to be involved with us many, many years ago. The model that he has at Peterborough is, I've said to you this before, it's not just me saying it now. I love the model they have at Peterborough. They buy young, hungry players. Yes, they put money in, but if you look at their net profit, they always make money. And Darren McAntony was always, I remember reading something about ownership and that, and he basically said, I'm entrusted to make sure this club never, ever goes out of business, when they were talking about Bury and Bolton. And he said, I'm trusted with that, and I never will do that. And he hasn't, you know, but we didn't even want to talk to him. I get at the time we just passed and said we wouldn't go to outside investment, but we did have Eric throwing his toys out of his pram and saying he'd take his shares, etc., with him if we talked to him. Well, what's different now? We've already talked to prospective investors already. You know, we've had Mark Davis and Ed Leake already talking to some people. What's the difference now? You know, Darren McAntony actually would have probably been a really good thing for us, and probably, I know it sounds really stupid, but we probably have got more engagement from him than we actually have had from our previous football club board, and sometimes on the current Don's Trust board.
There's so much in what you've just said there.
I know, sorry, I've rambled again.
No, not at all. I'm going to have to pick up different things and come back to them. So you referenced Accrington Stanley there, and as you rightly said, fantastic owner, doing a great job, but they're, as you say, they are a small club. They know their limitations. They're realistic about their limitations. And I'm sorry to bang on about this because I've done it so often over the last few years, but let's go back to top 10 finishes and championship level quality strikers and talk about raising expectations of the fan base. And then let's talk about putting money into playing budget from stadium contingency funds, all to fund this. Whereas if at any point we'd have actually sat down and realised, like we said last season was a success because at the end of it we stayed up. It was a horrible season. It was a terrible season to watch. It was disappointing in the aspect of what we were told going into the season with the players we had. But just being and maintaining League One football is a huge success for us. But we should not have, and we should not be expecting that. And that's where our model's gone wrong, because we've tried to climb too far on what we actually had and our actual natural ability. And the shame of this all is because of delays to the stage and beyond our control, that did hamper us being a sustainable League One club with the stage and we thought we could have. But anyway.
But do you know what really annoys me? And the Stadium Contingency Fund, yes, that is a big issue, because we used future profits that we thought we were going to have. But when you read through about the finances, we made a loss of 1.3 million in the 2018-19 season. And they said there's a number of reasons, but including commercial funding, merchandise, functions, and overheads. But then it also says we've actually used 2.4 million of the proceeds of the sale of Kings Meadow because of the losses over the 2018-19 season and obviously last season. So 1.3 million in 2018-19 doesn't take Einstein to work out that it's 1.1 million that we lost last year. But the frustration I have is that we gave the squad a bonus last year to stay up. But they got us in that position in the first place. So why the hell did we ever... There's certain decisions that I really question. I said to you at the time, I really had an issue with this ad hoc bonus that Waddy was able to get past the board. Basically rewarding the team who got us there in the first place. They're the team that didn't win anything under Neil Ardley and went through that way. And then we gave them a bonus, which amazingly, FA Cup, amazingly we seem to perform. End of the season, we seem to amazingly perform. But how much money did we put into that? It's certain decisions we've made have really, really bugged me. But the reason it was never challenged, it's now so striking, is because if you think back into when we went to the league, like League Two, and when we got promoted, we would never have accepted us losing money. That just wasn't what we were about. We were break even, or we actually made profits, which we were one of the clubs that didn't. One of the clubs that did make profits amazingly. But we seem to have accepted that we were happy to lose the 1.3 million and the 1.1 million pound last year, because we actually thought we had everything secured for new ground, and now we don't. So that's why the Kings Meadow money is now coming up as well, because it's like, how much money have we thrown away through bad decisions?
The question about us being, you're right. We always used to budget the famous line: we're budgeted to be drawn away from home in the first round of every cup competition and lose. So we didn't budget any income from cups whatsoever. But we were propped up, weren't we? As we said last week, with targeted donations towards the playing budget, which are such a double-edged sword. We're not going to go back down and pull at that thread. The other thing you mentioned, going back to your previous conversation, the thought of selling out. And you're right, Eric did say at one point, I believe, that he would take his shares away if that was to happen. He's still got a considerable number of shares, my understanding, in as an individual shareholder in AFCW PLC. So, and this is the thing, like, when I'm reading this document, so this is the document that came out that you've been talking about, all those questions that were put forward, that excellently written letter by Charlie Talbot with all the questions raised by a group of fans, puts the club, which they've come out and given some answers. And it's just full of language business speak that's going to leave me cold. And it's no wonder we have really poor levels of engagement with the Don's Trust in terms of votes and meeting attendances and stuff like that. Because when I start reading into corporate structure, and I start reading into Don's Trust bonds and investment schemes and community share schemes and all this business, I switch off. Yes, it's not my world. I am English, I am not maths. But I am not alone in that. And I think the vast majority of people, the overwhelming majority of our fan base, especially season ticket holders, Don's Trust members, can't be bothered with all that. It's just, that's not why they're football fans. So we shouldn't, like, we've tried, you and I have tried, and everyone that's helped us has tried, Kevin, Mark, Chris, everyone, Paul Raymond, everyone has tried to help us, to include George, Marco, everyone, Matt, everyone that's helped us out. We've tried to help in these instances and improve engagement and what have you, but in terms of the Don's Trust side of things, that low level has just been consistent for many, many years now. And that proves to me that these things, the conversations that we now are having to have, are things that people kind of just go, oh, I don't care. I just want to watch football.
Well, that is the thing as well. And it sort of needs to be simplified as well. Maybe because we're not all switched on. And like I said to you already, I get bored very quickly. I probably just need some pictures. This is what it will look like if you get the investment. This is what it will look like if you don't get the investment. That's easy. I can live with that. But it is a little bit. And the communication side has always been a challenge. And there are, if you read through the answers, they have said that they felt as sometimes if they had communicated, that could have impacted something else down the line of someone else who was trying to invest. And there were so many difficulties within that to do the right thing and not the right thing. And I can live with that. I understand that. But to come out right at the end and talk about communication, hey, look, we're part of streaming the meeting on Monday, and I would just like to thank the Don's Trust Board for giving us such an easy gig to do the first one on, because it could have
just giving myself the sign of the cross, Stu.
They could not have picked a meeting. Now, we're very confident that we will be able to stream it. We've done the Don's Trust hustings, and we're very confident we can do that. But it's the first time we've ever done a live stream for a meeting, and what a meeting to pick! It's just like probably will be the most. And I got a lot of time for people in the Don's Trust Board, and I will repeat what I've said before. We can't have this meeting. Cannot be people just throwing stones at people and going, you got this wrong and you're rubbish and all this sort of stuff. It can't be that, because it's just a waste of time. And we'll probably just turn the feed off. There'll be no point. We've really got to come out of this meeting, try and somehow get back together. To get the trust back in the Trust Board, I'll be truthful. From my point of view now, I will be questioning everything, and I'll be like, what are they not telling us? Because that's just unfortunately the way it's come out. But we've got to somehow get past this and have some sort of look. We need that 75%. 75%, yeah. Well, I can't remember what it is now for the restricted actions.
Yeah,
we're not going to. I think we're going to get close to it. If I'm being truthful, I think we're going to get. But to get that extra bit, this meeting is quite crucial. Now, I know people will say, I'm not setting up. Don't care. I laugh. Social media is the best thing ever. Aidan, who we know quite well, was basically on Facebook and said, I don't care what you say. I ain't selling. You ain't going to change that person. I did reply to her and said, I can still see you're a little bit unsure, Aidan. It's not that. But there are some people that just will not sell no matter what you say to them. They will not sell. But there are some people that are in between. And if they're convinced, this is a situation, we've tried everything we can, but this is what we feel is the best thing to do, you may get those people that are on the borderline, and that's what's going to swing it. Of course, you're right. You said at the start, you don't really want to have that option to do a fan set, and you hope there's other options. But I'm doubtful if there is, because I just don't think there is a time to get other options. Buckingham could literally just walk out and leave us a still structure, which, to be fair, I don't think they've got much to finish off from what they're talking about. The time's against us.
Just going to take a pause for a moment here, Stu, for a word from our sponsors. And do you know that you can win Titliest Europe Pro V1 golf balls? Just post a video of your best golf shot on the AFC Wimbledon official Twitter by Friday the 13th of December to enter. I thought it was very important that we reference this very, very exciting competition at this stage of the history of AFC Wimbledon. And yes, I know it's Titleist, but it's not as funny as saying Titliest, all right?
And can I just say, I'm so glad that our social media team have got a sense of humour, because whoever put a tweet up to say, don't forget the Don's Trust meeting, and then put a picture of a stand we can't afford, I salute you. I salute your humour. I love it. Thank you very much. But please, can we not use that picture? Could we just use any picture? Use a picture from Feltham. I'm sure we have that picture somewhere. Or Waddingford. Or Sandhurst. Let's just pick a picture from there. But please don't. Yeah, I saw that picture and I was just like, it's like become a nightmare now when I see that picture.
It is a little bit. You referenced before the break the meeting on Monday, and that could become a nightmare. Unfortunately, we have to be very, very, and the Don's Trust be very, very careful. It's I think I need to give a plea though to those people running the meeting: is please have a concrete idea of what you want to happen or what you want to have happened by the time that meeting concludes. It can't be. It has to have an element of being open forum. Of course, it does, but like you say, Stu, this could just very easily descend into finger pointing and blaming and be of no constructive purpose whatsoever. So we need to actually have a clear idea of what we want to achieve from this meeting. If it's just, hey, look, if it is just because we think we need to have a meeting for people to ask questions and what have you, that's fine. But we've already got a vehicle to ask questions, and we've already used a vehicle to ask questions and have answers from the Don's Trust Board and what have you. Now, I applaud all the members of the Don's Trust Board for being willing to go up and stand up in person and have these conversations. But we've really got to get this right, because otherwise it could be a shit show.
Yeah, I think it's a really challenging meeting, you know, in terms of, I think it's too big a meeting to just have the football club board chair on his own at the front. I'll be truthful. You know, Mark Davis, again, I know quite a few people on the Don's Trust board, and nobody can speak highly enough of him in terms of the amount of time he's put and invested. And let's be fair, an unbelievable. No one has ever been through a new ground. You know, how do you prepare for that? I know we've had some experience on the stadium group, what they're called, committee, but I think it's too big a meeting just to have someone at the front, because I don't really want someone just, you know, being there for everyone to give grief to. That's just not the point. You know, it mightn't be a way that the football club board people that are there are all at the front of there on the table. You know, because I think it's unfair, because it's going to be a very challenging meeting. But you're right. I think what I want to come out of, for me, what I want the meeting to do is to make me understand what is the worst case scenario and what are their thoughts. And if I'm honest, and also I would really like to know, because they're the ones that have been around the Don's Trust board meetings and what's been said. They all must have an opinion, and I would like to know what their opinion is. Would they sell? Would they not sell? I think it's fair for us to find out what they would want to do. There must be some sort of majority on the board to go down the idea of investment, because why would it ever be suggested? You know, but I think that's what I would like, is to come away thinking they're the ones that have seen everything, and you know, there's a couple of people that have met the investors. If the investors are not there, we don't know if they're going to be there, or they may be there and be disguised. I don't mean in sort of like a hat and beard and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? But you know, it could be quite easy for people to.
Yeah, Stu, I'm not going to lie. If we've got three guys in the front row, all wearing long Macs with trilby hats on, with fake glasses and fake nose and a moustache, pretty sure we know who they're going to be. Well, that pretty much is your normal attire, but
I think that's what I would like. You know, it's just to come away from that. I've got no interest of throwing stones at people and just getting their frustrations out and making them feel absolutely terrible.
I would quite happily throw stones at some people from Milton Keynes.
Yeah, but
one person in particular.
You know, I've got no interest of coming away from that thing. Well, that's great. I've had a shout at somebody, had a moan, I feel better now. Well, that don't make me feel better. To come away a bit more clued up and then have a better, more informed decision before we have to make that decision. That's what I want.
Just to clarify, I'm not actually advocating, or am I about to go and throw stones at any other human being, okay? Just so we're sure. I don't want to get in any trouble. I feel like I need to clarify these things. I feel like we have to sort of point out where we make the jokes. In fact, fairness to you, our sense of humour and our joke telling, we do actually need to point out, like, this is where you're meant to laugh. Unfortunately, we don't get many of those. This ownership thing, though, these investors, right, so clearly, obviously, in the background, they have been around for some time, because as you've referenced and has been referenced in the response to this letter, 6 representatives of the 3 boards have met with potential investors. I'm not sure why Mark Davis and Ed Leake have been singled out. They're the only ones named. There are 6 representatives and only 2 of them named. I don't understand why that would be the case. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. It is interesting that during the Don's Trust hustings, election hustings, of which we performed?
I don't know what you
which
performed.
We conducted. There we go. That's the word
you were part of.
Yes.
You were the main stars.
Watch Mark Davis and Ed Leake's back, and there are references to changing the restrictive action votes, not necessarily about this one, but it's in there, and talk of opening ourselves up to external investment. They are there. So clearly these were things that were in the backs of people's minds when we conducted those in what would have been, was it November?
It was, yeah.
What was it? It was on a Sunday after the what game? The Lincoln game, wasn't it? So it would be like the 6th of November.
Yeah, because I didn't go to Lincoln game because I wasn't well, yes.
You missed the classic.
I did.
Kwesi Appiah scored.
And a good goal as well.
It was a great goal. Well done, Kwesi.
The sincerity in your voice there was amazing. It's just great. Joe Quezzy is... I can't believe he's injured. Like, injured at Christmas.
Do you know what? It's not his fault, because it sounds like we're having a go at him.
No,
because
I know.
No, well, yeah, in part. I mean, I'll make you right. But what I mean by that is, like, no one wants to be injured. And he has spent a considerable amount of time being injured. And that's no fun for anybody. And I wouldn't like to be in his position in those terms. You know what softens that blow, though? Being paid multiple £1,000s a week on a 3-year contract. Yeah. That's not Quezzy's fault.
And that's the thing, though, isn't it? With Quezzy, I don't mind Quezzy, if I'm being truthful. You know, I chat to enough people that say he's a pleasant enough guy. He gave my son a high five when I was at one of the games, and I laughed because I was like, you're not supposed to like Quezzy, but it's like it becomes some sort of pantomime.
Was that when he broke his hand?
Probably. But it's like it's some pantomime villain, but, excuse me, but I don't have a problem with Quezzy picking up what he's being paid. No one forced us to give him that money. That was a decision that was made by Neil Hardy, getting the rubber stamp from the football club board to spend that money. It's not his fault. If you and I get a contract that's too good, we don't then go, oh, do you know what? I think you're paying me too much. I'm probably not going to be here that much. Do you want to just forget about it? No, it's not his fault, is it? Do you know what I mean? But I'm joking, because let's be fair. Would you really want to be going out at Kings Meadow at the moment? Because we always forget that the atmosphere isn't going to be that great fun. You and I have just, before we come on, for the podcast recording, we were basically saying that I've not looked at any interviews or any football related news since that Monday paper was released. I just don't see what the point is, because I look at a team now that I don't really. It's like for me at the moment, there is no hope for the team. It's like the only thing I can see now is us going backwards, and it wasn't great fun watching it at the best of times. So, it's just, I think we might get some football chat. I don't think we talked about football that much this is our third sort of podcast radio show since the news was broken. I really don't think we spent more than a couple of minutes talking about anything football related.
No. We will do, I promise you. But I don't want to go back to before I said got involved in that Lincoln game with Quezzy scoring and we got sidetracked. The Husting interviews,
yes,
they are worth just checking out, just to see, and just to see that clearly there were moves afoot at that time. And, well, that's just what it is. I mean, I'm not going to add any further comment to that. I just found that fascinating to watch back. What is also interesting about these investors, well, for a start, they're not really offering us that much money at present. Not enough that I don't think, not enough to certainly have any. I wouldn't have thought anyone would be looking to sell ownership for what's being offered at the present time, or what appears to be being offered. I'm scanning through the document now for actual. There were some specifics on this deal, weren't there? I read somewhere 7.5 million.
7.5 million, and I'm hearing again people saying a 35% share of it, which would give them I think it would mean the Dons Trust. And again, this is where I'm getting confused. Some people are going, well, the 25% is held by the fans, and the Dons Trust will sell half of their 75%, which means they wouldn't have controlling interest. However, they would have 3 people from the investors or who they choose on the board, so they have a say.
This is what I referenced to the point earlier about all this financial corporate structure language and stuff we talk about, because this is where I'm totally confused. So yes, we talk about the 75%, but as it stands, have we not got in the Dons Trust something about around 90% of actual voting shares are with the Dons Trust currently? I think that is correct. Okay, I don't know for sure. I can't find it anywhere. I think it's about 90%. So if we sold 37.5%, yes, it's half of what the we're half of the minimum that the Dons Trust should have, but in real terms, the Dons Trust would still have the majority share. Yeah, it would just be diluted. But then when I start thinking about that, I'm thinking even if we were to sell some more of the 25% that we currently allow, if we were to sell more of those shares, and it does break it down to eventually it does become 37.5 Dons Trust, 37.5 these investors, and 25 all these other individual shareholders, then it seems like we're in an Arsenal situation where nothing ever gets done because no one has a controlling, final, overriding voice, vote, whatever it might be. This whole thing is just, this is why a lot of the time I can totally understand why there's lots of people going, can't be bothered with this, just sell out and have some rich guy own us. And to have it that way, because there's a very simple, obvious structure that goes to it. We'll come to the issues and problems and threats of doing that. But the whole, like I say, the whole breaking up of percentages and who's got what amount of votes and stuff, it gives me a headache. It really does.
And there's also a line, again, there's lots of things in there, but they're also saying that, the Don's Trust would still have a substantial say in running the club because it would have 3 Don's Trust board nominees on the board. They would not have a compromising majority, and there would be no restricted actions to prevent a share issue from proceeding. So whereas now we have a very tough restricted actions, which is the right thing to do, that doesn't play that, so we aren't in control of it. But then my argument is, if we are not in control of it, it's £7.5 million. You're right, what you said at the start. It's £7.5 million, right? Because instantly, if they put £7.5 million in, they're still then going to have to get a loan for the remaining, £3.5–4 million. But then to throw something else into the mix, we're also hearing now that if people can take their money that they put for the crowdfunding, there is a situation where they could take their money and ask for their money back. And if that goes below £2 million, everyone gets their money back because it doesn't meet the criteria of the crowdfunding. So then that means there's actually a bigger shortfall, in my understanding. Which, no one's going to get their name on a urinal. That's a shame. Do you know what I mean? But I'm sure they can live with that. But the funding, for me, £7.5 million, if we still have to get a loan, then that is not really something that I think. Is there any sense in that? I know we get the ground we want, but if someone's going to come in with, I think my attitude was, I thought someone's going to come with serious money, £11 million, maybe some money on the pitch, not to get in the Premier League, which I keep hearing people who don't want to sell out, keep throwing that in people's faces about, people just want to get into the Championship and the Premier League. No one said that. For us, it's about sustaining League One level. I think that's our realistic level. Anything past that, I don't know about you, but I'm used to being in League Two or League One. It's just about being at home and having an academy and having a future, having your own ground. Do you know what I mean? But again, like I say, we could need more money because we don't have that £2.5 million from the crowdfunding.
Which, as you say, could then mean we're looking at 13.5 million. But the other thing about these investors from the document that was sent to us was the fact that it does state, okay, don't want to reveal their identity, that's fine. There was, where does it say about them? They are not lifelong Wimbledon fans, but they are businessmen. I need to find the exact quote to get that wording correct. But that's not particularly reassuring, I must admit. Yes, they have AFC Wimbledon's best interest. Yes, here we go. They are businessmen, not lifelong Wimbledon fans. They are investors with a profound sense of community, and they want to see us restored to its right place. But I don't deny that whatsoever. We don't know these people, though, so we don't know. And unfortunately, that line, they are businessmen, not lifelong Wimbledon fans, that's going to be a huge red flag to a lot of people. Yeah, because one of the things we want to make sure is that we have protection on the ground, because let's be fair, it's a great bit of land in a really lovely area. We need to make sure that's in a lovely area. You've been there, right? You have been there, yeah?
Plough Lane's a lovely area. It's where I spent many a day when I was young, watching Wimbledon play in Plough Lane, in a lovely stadium on the corner. But I think, you're right. I think, and it's talk. I think realistically, anyone that comes in to buy a club, if they're looking to make money, they're in the wrong sport. So we need to make sure it's really, again, what are their aspirations? Are their aspirations to stay a League One club, be in the community, make sure we basically deliver on all the things that Merton Council wanted us to come back. We are very much about the community, aren't we? So it's really about understanding who they are. They're not stupid. If we think they're going to come in and be fans and all of a sudden think, yes, we want to make sure we're challenging for this and we do this for we have to know. One of the things that I did say to you, and this is one of the things that I'm a bit caught out on, is that my concern was that when we finally went to Plough Lane, we would lose that fans element. So, the hospitality, would we do man the matches in the middle bar? I know we're not going to have a middle bar, but, said like a middle bar. And that was always my biggest concerns. What are their plans for, we may not be fans owned, but we do embrace the fan model, and I think we had before. Do they want to keep that? There's a lot of a lot of questions that need to be asked, but we need to if we are going to go along this option, we need to squeeze some more money out of them because, hey, look, £7.5 million feels to me way too low.
Yeah, for all the reasons we said, it's not just about the stadium as well, it's how we go on from there. So, yes, the other final thing I'm going to reference from these things, Stu, is a question about what due diligence has been carried out on these investors. I almost said Dillinger, as in Doug Dillinger, the former WCW official. Anyway, what's interesting is that the question was asked, to what degree are Don's Trust members able to carry out our own fit and proper persons test? This was an interesting response. It said, members will get to hear from investors in due course and will know who they are by the time any restricted action vote is brought forward, which, I mean, you could read too much into things sometimes, but I read that thinking, okay, so they're pretty sure that this restricted action vote will come forward at some point, as opposed to it being a potential option. Second sentence, it isn't clear how Don's Trust members would set about performing due diligence, which is fair, or how they would be qualified to perform this, which is a very difficult one for me to understand because, I don't know, you're like, how are we informed about anything we vote on as Don's Trust members, to be honest with you? You could argue that for absolutely, I've been arguing this for a long time, because of the nature of running a football club and all these sorts of confidentiality clauses and not need to know things, but yeah, essentially need to know things and things that we can't say because it might interrupt this or be disrespectful or damage potential long-term sponsorship deals or any other sort of contractual negotiations. Basically, a lot of the times when we're voting not in possession of many, many facts. So it's essentially saying, if someone is put in front of us that wants to buy the club, you as Don's Trust members can, I don't know, there's a limited amount that you'll be able to actually know about them. And then does that really qualify? Do you know what I mean? Does it qualify us to actually take a vote on that particular individual or individuals? It's a bit of sadly it's a flaw in the system.
And also it's also the potential investors. So it's not just one person. So I thought it's just one rich person who wants to put the money in, but now it's potential investors, and we know there's going to be 3 people on, if it goes through, there'll be 3 people on the football club board. But yeah, so is it 5 people? Is it, I don't know, is it some Euro Million lottery winners who, about 100 of them who are putting, I don't know, 100 grand in each? Can't do a maths, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just, I think the thing is, we need to see who they are, see them, smell them, all those sort of things, try and see what they are. But again, if we can get another option, like I say, I don't want to sell. I think the only option is to sell. But I would love there to be another option. I'd love Merton Council to come out and really, I say help us. They've done more than enough to help us already. But I sort of sometimes wonder how would they view all the work that they've done to just see a Feltham ground at Plough Lane? Would they stand by and want to see that? It's playing dangerous games because it's like, it's playing, a game of bluff, isn't it? But yeah, you hope there's something else there.
Ever think Feltham ever got promoted and the headline of the newspaper was Feltham up?
Feltham raising the roof.
Was there anything else you wanted to add to the discussion about the black hole that we currently find ourselves in?
No. Do you know what? It feels, they say a week in football is a long time, but this has felt a long time. It really has, I think I just want to get Monday done. I really do. I'm intrigued as to what Monday's going to be like. I agree totally with what you said about there has to be some structure to it and an end game. Very much what do you want to get out of it. But we've got Bolton on Saturday. It's a 6-pointer. Can you call it a 6-pointer Bolton because they haven't got? I don't know. Is it a minor?
No, they're in positive points now.
Oh, okay, so it's not a minus 6-pointer, or I don't know.
They're not on a minus 11 million points. No.
Well, yeah. I think the irony as well, a team that nearly went bust that we're playing on Saturday. But I think it's just like, we need to, it's crazy. You know, my son is, I've probably told you already, my son's mascot in a week's time at home to Doncaster. First home game since we've had all this news. And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, crikey, does it mean anything now? Do you know what I mean? Should I take as many pictures as I can because I won't really see full-time professionals at a Wimbledon club anymore? I laugh and joke, but Monday has to have some, say, positive outcome. some clarity to a lot of questions, and I'm intrigued. It's going to be one. It's going to be one of the most the most popular. I don't know what the word is. It's going to be attended by a lot of people. See, my wife's still laughing at me now. It's going to be attended by a lot of people. I'm just intrigued. I'm intrigued to see who turns up, the age group, because again, we've said that before, the age group we have a lot of older people, which you're gradually getting into that bracket of now, Nick. I know you try and stay ageless.
I'm just ageless, blimey.
Ageless, or don't age.
Well, all I would say is you're right, and my red flag about the time, and I will trawl through the archives on the podcast and I'll find it for people if they want. But did we not say when we voted through the 11 million, the rights to acquire a loan of up to £11 million?
Yeah.
I'm not saying on this podcast, that was voted on by about 100 people in the room, average age of 62. I was the second youngest person in the room. George was obviously the youngest, he's 12. Then there was me, 25, and everyone else was upwards. Well, you were there, so what, upwards of... Have you hit 50 yet?
Well, to be fair, my son was there as well, so I think he lowered the age as well.
I don't think he could have voted, though. Neither could George, actually, at 12.
He didn't raise his hand. I think he just let out a bit of a... Ooh, on it. But I don't think...
Sorry, can you repeat what was that he did?
Ooh, well, he does little claps now. He claps himself when he thinks he's done something well. But he does clap when I score on FIFA. That's quite a good thing. He hasn't yet booed when I concede a goal. But he does clap when I score a goal on FIFA, so he's been trained very well, as you can tell on that. So he will raise his hand when I tell him to raise his hand, Williak.
Okay.
But no, you're right. We're joking because we just can't want to be serious all the time. But I'm intrigued to see the age of people that come in. So not I want to see, are there going to be younger fans going to, because you know what? They are we have a joke with George. George has a bit of a different opinion on us, and that's true because we keep sacking him, and he just deliberately wants to vote differently to how we think. But George has only ever seen Kings Meadow, and he won't mind me saying this. George has only ever known Kings Meadow. That's his home. We sure, how many young fans do we have who are in the same boat? How many young fans do we have that go, do you know what? They see their mates at Chelsea and Fulham and West Ham who spend ridiculous amounts of money. 11 million quid isn't that much money in the Premiership, really. They might be the ones that actually do want outside investment. It's just such a lot to consider. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how it goes, but it must be done in an adult way. It can't turn into some sort of slang match, because do you know what that does? I said to you years ago about Football Club Manchester, Football Club United. What's they called? Manchester Football Club. God, I can't remember what they're called. FC United.
FC United of Manchester.
I can't remember what they're called.
My word.
I needed words. I just couldn't get them in the right order.
I'm playing all the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order.
But remember, I said to you about when they moved to their new ground, it tore the club apart. I don't think they've ever recovered from it. We can't afford that. It's a bad situation, but we can't afford it to tear the club apart. We really can't.
I love how your closing line, as if we're on Jerry Springer's final thoughts, is we can't afford for this meeting to fall apart. Wow. The levels of irony there, or irony, more like a metaphor. Anyway, should we get on to other things very quickly?
Other things? Anything else to discuss?
Yes, we've got two things we have to discuss. Number one, we've got a fixture, Bolton away. Yeah. Hopefully we won't slip up. Hey, there we go, done it again. But really, as I said to you earlier, Stu, before we started recording, the stuffing and the wind has been knocked out of me completely. And I'm a bit like Mark Lawrenson now. I just don't know if I really care.
Do you know what? I pressed the wrong button because I've got the League One tables in front of me, and I pressed the wrong button because all of a sudden I thought we were 7th, and I was thinking, how are we 7th? And then I realised I clicked the form guide. It's like, wow.
That's not bad if we're 7th in the form guide.
We're 7th in the form
That's
guide.
something.
Bolton are 9th. That's interesting. But yeah, do you know what? If we're going to talk about football and be serious for a little while, big game.
We'll be serious for a little while.
Big game. Does it make any difference? Hey, look, do you know what? There's bigger things. I said on before, obviously, all this news come out, that we had a massive December, in terms of going away to Tranmere, home to Bolton, Bristol Rovers. We've got Bristol Rovers? Yeah, we have got Bristol Rovers, and Southend on New Year's Day. Massive games. In terms of football-wise, if we are going to get through this and we get the investment or Merton Council or Euro Millions or one in a local person in Wimbledon, it probably is important if we can keep ourselves above the relegation zone. You know what I mean? So that, potentially, and this is just again top of my head, does where we are in the league table impact investors? If we're in the bottom four in trouble, does that impact on? Do they want a League One club or a League Two club? We don't know. Simple little questions like that. So, yeah, I don't think we'll win that on Saturday. Just to finish off with that.
No, I don't think we will either, but we'll cross that bridge and discuss that more. Well, George Jones will discuss that on Lost Ball Radio this Sunday from 8 p.m, and we'll discuss it on next week's podcast if I am still alive. Music quiz. Tweet us at 9 Years Podcast if you recognise the song that starts. What a tune to start this week's show. Oh, amazing. So if you recognise it, tweet us, name, artist, year of release. Last week it was Crowded House with Don't Dream It's Over. It was released in 1986. Thank you very much, Kieran Johnson, at Kieran_Johnson. Oh no, I had to double check, sorry. Lee Rombolo at Meadow AFCW said, well, I'll read you Lee's tweet. Sorry, Lee, it's probably not been much better this week. Goodness, it's depressing. Halfway through, will force myself to listen to the rest on the way to work. Yes, last week's was depressing. We're in it's a depressing situation. It's like 2002 all over again. And yes, it is that bad, people. All right, stop telling us it's not that bad. It's that bad. Anyway, very apt song. Crowded House, Don't Dream It's Over. Lee's gone for 1987. Oh, Stu, which has confused me. I should have checked this before we started recording. Right. Can you entertain the listeners whilst I double check what the answer is? Because I thought it was 86. Well, I'm now doubting this.
I was just thinking, like, what we got in store next week that could cheer us up. And I was just thinking, hey, look, we've got a general election on Thursday. That's great news. Is it not? I don't know.
I said entertain the listeners, not depress them even more. Blimey.
I know. We don't normally get in before Christmas, do we? And then, I don't know. I've got my end of year party on Friday. And then, of course, my son... I'm really confused. I don't know what to put him in because I'm really concerned it's really cold outside. So I'm thinking I'm going to get him loads of layers and he'll probably look like the Michelin Man. Because he won't be able to run around because he actually won't be able to see his legs. But yeah, I'm a dilemma. What should I put him in?
The corner?
The corner. Yeah. Well, I'm worried that he's going to... Jim has said to me, like, does he run in straight lines and stuff? And I'm like, you're probably going to have to fence things off because he would just run. But I don't know. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's not for him, of course. It's for me. So I'm going to look forward to the day. Anyway. And we're going to win, aren't we? Well, actually, no. I don't think we are.
Right. It was 1986, by the way, listeners.
Well, thank you for filling in there, Stu. You had to fill in quite a bit, didn't it?
Do you know why? Because as I went online to quickly double-check that, I also noticed we had a few notifications on Twitter, and we basically got this tweet from Dan, at AFCW Dan, who says, rereading the 50 questions and answers, listening to the 9 Years podcast for the umpteenth time. Okay. It's slowly sinking in, the perilous situation we are in. £3.5 million spunked on Kingstonian and Liam Trotter. Who'd have a go at Liam Trotter? Leave the poor man alone. With that money, we'd be able to finance the £9,000 bill. Let that sink in. That's a closing thought and a half, isn't it?
How do we get onto Liam Trotter, the poor bloke, sunning himself in America with Harry Forrester? Bless him. He ain't done too bad.
We really would have been better signing Philippa Forrester. Anyway, is there anything else we need to say? No. Updates from Bolton at 9 Years Podcast, Twitter, whatever. Monday meeting, Don's Trust SCM, Monday the 9th of December, 7:30 p.m. Don's Trust members, you must be a member to attend. You will have your membership card details checked. If you would like to watch online and you are a Don's Trust member, there will be a link emailed to you and you can view the meeting from the comfort of your living room or bedroom or toilet or wherever you would like to sit. Maybe in your 4,000 capacity home, which doesn't have any toilets or ceiling tiles or anything like that. You'll be sent that email. That, I think, is everything, Stu. I can't be... Yeah, I have lost the will to live now.
I know.
Let's put this music back on. Yes! This is going to cheer everybody up. There we go. Let's get in a good mood. No, Stu's not having it. Okay. Anyway, on that note, thank you for joining me, Stu.
Thanks for having me.
Alexa Bliss, there's another reason to be cheerful. Just think about Alexa Bliss for 5 minutes, gents. That will cheer you up. Bag first, milk last. Watford have sacked the manager. That will cheer you up as well. Again, by the time we've recorded and by the time this goes out, they've probably sacked another manager. Who knows? We will speak to you again, hopefully next Friday.